Euro 2020 final was superspreader event with 3,400 COVID cases linked to match.
Here's a summary of the article.
England's run-up to the Euro 2020 final caused a significant risk to public health across the UK, a study has found. Data from NHS Test and Trace shows more than 9,000 COVID cases were linked to matches monitored for the government's mass events test scheme. Analysis of the third and final stage of the government's mass events test pilots found more than 85% of cases linked to 49 days of outdoor sport, entertainment and music came from the 8 Euro matches hosted at Wembley. For the final and semi-final games at Wembley, risk mitigation measures in place were less effective in controlling COVID transmission than was the case for other mass spectator sports events. Despite the spike in cases after the football, the government has said data gathered from the pilot scheme shows large-scale sporting events can go ahead safely with full crowds. In a joint statement, the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport and Public Health England said England's Euro 2020 matches were not considered typical of standard sporting events and should not be used as comparators. FA Deputy Medical Director Jennifer Smith said, Euro 2020 was a unique occasion and it is unlikely we would see a similar impact on COVID-19 cases from future events.
This post received a score of 6,500, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Yes, well, everyone knew that would happen, didn't they?
Absolutely. Their government was constantly criticized for it, but they didn't give a damn. Consequences of their own actions.
First and foremost, fuck UEFA and FIFA. Soccer organizations are routinely some of the worst in all of sports.
Fuck FIFA for choosing Qatar over Australia for the World Cup. How many Indians and Filipinos had to die so that your air-conditioned stadiums could be built in the desert?
So when they kept saying it's coming home, they were referring to COVID.
Coming to a home near you.
Anybody who expected anything else was being naive. Euro 2020 as a whole was a giant middle finger to this whole pandemic. We were just lucky it happened during a relatively quiet phase of the pandemic. In some ways I am glad they were able to have this tournament, with plenty of good games. But at the same time, UEFA and COVID made it so that the usual Euro feeling didn't really come. Anyhow, it's long past and old news.
3,400 cases. 0 deaths biceps.
FK it, I'm calling it a win.
Unlike the match. For England. Slam.
Honestly, not a lot.
Yeah, I saw pictures of my friends there and 3,400 is very low. The place has been absolutely overcrowded.
Both NHS Test and Trace app and testing outside of stadium were voluntary. That suggests that cases identified would be underestimated. I think Germany has handled testing and pandemic guidance very differently, so I think important to bear this in mind in comparisons.
That's all? Or is that just based on cases due to the actual match itself? I can imagine that those 3,400 cases are contributing to a lot more cases overall. Not to mention all the cases across the country due to people gathering to watch the final. You know, people are gonna look at this and say it's not a big deal because only 5% of the attendees caught it.
Stuff like this makes me doubt reports like the ones that say Lollapalooza wasn't a superspreader event.
They had a 90% vax rate for that event. It was used by Live Nation as a test for future concert policy and was very successful. This match had a voluntary test and trace policy, so basically nothing.
You can't share good news here.
It's shocking. Thousands and thousands of people tightly squeezed together, all screaming and breathing on each other. No one could see this coming.
It's the entire tournament, and considering England was in it for the duration, 3.5k doesn't seem that bad. And #X200B, and #X200B. These were supposed to be vaxxed or negative. And look what happened in 2 days. And #X200B. Music festival in the Netherlands leads to over 1,000 COVID infections. A festival in the Netherlands has shocked officials after 1,000 coronavirus infections were linked to the event despite requiring a test for entry. The Vernipt Outdoor Festival, which took place in Utrecht in early July, was attended by 20,000 people over 2 days.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.